Hello everyone, my name is Arthur Coelho Bezerra. I am a federal researcher at the Brazilian Institute of Science and Technology and a professor at the Postgraduation Program on Information Science in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I'm also the Vice Representative of the Latin America and Caribbean chapter of the International Center for Information Ethics, which is deeply involved in this important event together with UNESCO and other institutions. I take this opportunity to thank the organizers for the invitation. Although I was invited to speak about the topics of AI policy and ethics, I believe that one cannot talk about those topics without bringing up legal, cultural, and technological questions, which are all embedded in the political economy of our societies. We know, for instance, that information accessibility is closely related to educational accessibility. And we also know that in capitalist societies, education costs money. Thus, when we discuss information policies related to artificial intelligence practices that are more inclusive, we have to start thinking about the conditions that make information accessibility more exclusive. The final report of last year's AI for IA conference quotes an article from the Harvard Business Review that says that, and I quote, "Artificial intelligence, especially machine learning, is the most important general-purpose technology of our era. The impact of these innovations on business and the economy will be reflected not only in their direct contributions, but also in their ability to enable and inspire complementary innovations," end of quote. Well, while it's not difficult to pinpoint AI applications that benefit communities with poor access to information, it is also easy to list a number of intelligence-based technologies that deepen inequalities and forms of oppression of groups that are precisely the most vulnerable in our society. The so-called zero rating practice is a good example that shows the direct link between access to information and economic power. Zero rating defines the practice of providing free internet access with no data allowance, but to only a handful of websites. So, if you don't have money to pay for general internet access, but you have free access to social media, thanks to a business partnership between big tech companies and phone companies, you can't check if some news you received on your WhatsApp, in your Facebook or Instagram, if they are fake or not. Fact-checking, therefore, becomes a privilege of those who can pay for access to information. Another example that recently caught public attention was the racism embedded in the facial recognition algorithms used by police forces in predictive policing, in a more twisted dystopia than in the movie Minority Report. The several cases of wrongful arrests of black men made because of the use of this biased technology led to the suspension of its use in several parts of the world. Shifting genders, the 2018 book Algorithms of Oppression by Safia Umoja-Noble shows a revealing look at how the prejudice against women of color is embedded in search engine results and algorithms. Many other examples of information invisibility for reasons of race, gender, class can be listed, from laws and employment opportunities to cultural events and romantic partners in dating apps. However, the big tech companies that invest in these technologies don't seem to be losing money on the use of machine learning techniques, even though they are aware that part of this profit is at the expense of the mental health of an increasing number of users addicted to apps for smartphone and social media, as many recent studies are suggesting. The worst thing is that this addiction is largely encouraged by the innovations implemented on these platforms, which transform access to information into information dependence in a world where everyone feels the need to be constantly updated on news, posts, comments, photos, videos, memes from companies, institutions, friends, and even unknown friends. This is why UNESCO reminds us in the aforementioned AI for IA last year's final report that, and I quote, Making AI accessible is a collaborative effort between the public sector, the private sector, and communities. Dialogues with civil society in national, regional, and international levels are encouraged to ensure the inclusion of all in issues related to ethics of AI. End of quote. In this regard, it is worth highlighting the recent initiative taken by the Chinese government at the end of last August to create a set of standards for the first regulation on the use of algorithms in the world. According to the Chinese regulation, the rules apply to the use of recommendation technologies made by algorithms, including customizations, rankings, selection, search, filtering, dispatching, decision-making, and other modes of offering information to users. In general terms, algorithms should follow principles such as ethics, fairness, openness, and transparency. Therefore, special care is expected in the creation of users' classification models, avoiding using information that is harmful or discriminatory with regard to the interests of users. And finally, companies using AI technologies should avoid promoting compulsion or addiction to the use of services, as we have seen. The Chinese government's initiative can serve as a model for other nations that are concerned about the unilateral use of information technologies by companies in their own interests. Nevertheless, it is here in Brazil that we can find a world-renowned example of collaboration between government and civil society for the elaboration and implementation of a set of information policies aimed at digital technology, the Marco Civil of 2013. This regulatory framework was collectively built in around three fundamental pillars: users' privacy, net neutrality, and non-imputability of companies that own digital platforms. In the same year of 2013, through Edward Snowden's whistleblowing, we discovered that another form of partnership between government and companies in the United States was responsible for demolishing the privacy of individuals on the internet worldwide. And since then, the attempts to overturn the principles of Marco Civil here in Brazil have been constant, which makes the strengthening of collaborative ties between governments, companies, and civil society even more important in the search for a more inclusive and less oppressive technological structure. Thank you.